You're a nasty piece of work, really, aren't you, Iago? And also a nasty piece of work with a Sheffield accent.
Yes, yes, yes. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, or people get or no one gets the wrong idea. There was a critic, I think, from Manchester, so I don't pay any attention to what he says, but he said that my accent was. Couldn't quite understand why I was playing Iago the villain with a Yorkshire accent. Was it to prove that, you know, he was a particularly nasty character? And that's of course not the reason at all. The reason I wanted to do Sheffield was because the problem with playing Iago is that he has to be. Everyone calls him honest, and he has to come across as completely reliable and honest and upfront. And as he says, men should be what they seem. And Yorkshire is, I think, the advertiser's favourite for selling products that when they want people to believe what the voice is saying. So that was the idea behind it, that it gave them a sort of an element of honesty.
And did you have a Sheffield accent? Did you have to recover your Sheffield accent?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did. I mean, I don't suppose it was very. I can't quite remember, to be honest, because I really lost it when I was about 13, 14 when I went away to school. But yes, I certainly always had it, and my family always have it. So it was one that I felt comfortable with as well.
Naive question, because you've been playing to sell out houses, but what has the reaction of the Sheffield audiences been like?
Well, it's been great. I mean, it's been really great. And we have a lot of young people coming, partly because I think it's a set text, it's an A-level text or a GCSE text, but there's a lot of young people coming, a lot of people who haven't heard or seen the play before. And it's been sold out, and lots of they make a lot of noise at the end, so I assume they're enjoying it.
And for you, was part of the appeal coming back to Sheffield?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but apart from anything else, this is, I think, the best theatre in the country in a way. Especially after its refit. But also because we sold the house I grew up in last year because my mum died 2 years ago, and so I've still got 3 sisters here, but I wanted a good excuse to come home again.
And is this the Sheffield you remember?
No, absolutely not. No, it's completely different.
How so?
Well, I mean, I suppose I last spent a lot of time in Sheffield as opposed to Grindleford, where we used to live. I last spent a lot of time here in the 80s, and the difference since then has been incredible. I think it was cafe society now. I went outside and it was a hot day, but there was people, eating Italian food out on the terraces. I thought, God, you'd never have thought of that when it was the Peace Gardens in the 70s and 80s.
You can get frothy coffee now.
You get frothy coffee, you get all sorts of nonsense. There's more wine bars than pubs now.
How did it come about? Because so many people will know you and Clark from The Wire. And I suppose in our fantasy, you're all still those characters, and they ring you up in Baltimore and say, would you like to come do something different? But how did it come about in the first place?
What, me going to Baltimore?
No, coming to here, you and Clark,
Oh, well, Clark Daniel Evans, who's the artistic director of the Crucible, actually who I was at drama school with, he was a couple of years ahead of me, so I didn't know him very well then, but he asked Clark to come and play Othello, and Clark rang me up and said, do you want to come and play Iago? And I thought, no. And then I thought, actually, yeah, I'd love to. It'd be great. So that's how it happened, really.
So it was Clark's suggestion for you?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel wanted Clark and to get me, and it was Clark's idea.
And you go back a long way. I mean, obviously, The Wire was, 5 years or so in filming, was it, on and off? And
it was 5 years, yeah, 6 months a year for 5 years, and we finished, I don't know, 4 years ago, so it was about 9 years ago. So I've known him for a good 9 years.
And has that helped? Is there a chemistry, or whatever these things are?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, it's difficult to quantify these things, but I think people have said, audience members have said that. And I mean, it's interesting because they're effectively enemies, Othello and Iago, but in fact, they're enemies because they were and have had a history together and a history of comradeship and fighting together in wars. And we had very little time to rehearse this, and I was also performing at night in London, and while we were rehearsing, so it saved us an awful lot of time that we didn't have to get to know each other, and we didn't have to, and we knew how each other's worked, and we worked comfortably together, so that saved us a lot of time.
So there were no kind of rough edges. You kind of almost knew, oh well, he might be there. I'm expecting him to be there on the stage, and he was there.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. Yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm only aware of it now, really, you mention it, but I think it would have been very hard to do with someone I didn't know, and I think it does lend quite a lot to to the play that we do have this chemistry.
I mean, I think you said at the start of the run, you know, we feel slightly under-rehearsed. It's a colossal play, isn't it? There are a lot of lines,
Yeah.
which is always the daunting thing for the non-actor, and I presume probably for the actor as
And
well.
for the actor as well, yeah.
How do you approach something like this?
Well, it's just hell for about 4 months. Especially because I was doing quite a lot of work right up until starting rehearsals. Well, actually, during rehearsals of this, but I did a big part in London just before this, and then I was doing Fred West, and anyway, so I had a lot on, and I couldn't believe, because we're not getting any younger, neither Clark or me, and it took so long to learn lines that really we didn't know our lines until press night, really, and which is exciting, but it means that, I mean, all Shakespeare's tragedies, I mean, all Shakespeare's plays, but particularly his tragedies, they are monsters, they really are, and because once you've done a 2-3 page speech in blank verse, you then have to do a sword fight, and so, you know, it's quite a tough thing to get it all done in the time, and we had the advantage of Daniel being incredibly good and incredibly organised, and a really, really good cast, and the rest was just a nightmare. It was just really hard, just constant not putting my children to bed and just going off into the park to try and learn lines, that sort of thing.
And as soon as this is finished, will you forget it all and then just move on to the next thing? Does the brain clear out of this completely?
I suppose it does, yeah. I certainly, I can't remember a line of the play I did all summer, but I think the way it works is, yeah, it's sort of, you delete those files, but if you come back to do it, and hopefully we'll come back to do this somewhere or sometime, then it comes back pretty quickly, I think.
You mentioned the Fred West drama for ITV. I mean, you either have been or you are being incredibly busy at the moment. I mean, so you had appropriate adult.
Yeah.
You're going to get a BAFTA, that's what everybody's saying. But I mean,
I'm not sure they'll give a BAFTA for Fred.
How was that, anyway?
How was it?
Yeah.
Well, it was fascinating, really, because I was lucky in that I only really did it for 3 weeks. It was sort of 4 weeks, I suppose, very intensely in Manchester. So I was separate from my family and separate from anyone I knew, and I could just do it intensely and then get out. And as soon as I left Manchester and I was back home, then I could sort of leave Fred West behind. And I've only had 1 or 2 dreams since. So it was crucial that I could sort of get in and out pretty quickly. I wouldn't have wanted to live with him for any longer than that. I
did read somewhere, and this may be wrong, but you said you'd actually dreamt that he was trying to pull you off a wall or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a horrible dream. Yeah, yeah. I didn't know what it was. I was sort of perched on a wall, and he was trying to grab me. That's all I remember of it. But I had another one the other day. I can't remember what that was about. But I thought, oh God, he's back again. But he's yeah, they're not the sort of. And Iago's the same actually. Or Iago's is not the same. It's much more enriching to play Shakespeare. But playing these nasty guys, which I seem to be doing a lot of at the moment, it's They do take their toll, I think, eventually.
And the other, well, from the sublime to the ridiculous, Johnny English Reborn, you're in there as well.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'd forgotten about that, really, because it was last year, and I went to see it on Sunday with my kids, and I suddenly realised, my God, he's Iago. This guy's exactly the same character as I'm playing in Sheffield. And I mean, I did that because I've Rowan Atkinson's been a hero of mine since Not 9 O'Clock News, and so all I wanted to do was talk to him about that, and he nobly talked to me about it until eventually he sort of went, listen, Not 9 O'Clock News was 30 years ago. I've done quite a lot since then, but it was good fun, and I really like the end product. The film's really funny.
Can you pick and choose your roles now? It's a precarious profession, but have you got to a point now where, you know, the agent says, Dominic, we've got this, and this. Which one do you fancy?
Well, in a way, yes. I suppose I'm more in that position than I have been before. But you know, there's so few good parts out there, and there's so few times that that things come together really well, and you're available, and it's not too disruptive to family life and things. That the choices aren't. I'm not spoilt for choice, really. You know, it's rare that you get something like this coming together like this, and with such a good cast, and but I have been working back to back, so I'm due a holiday.
Indulge me with a couple of questions about The Wire, just for everybody who's keen on it, which we are. did you have any idea at the start it was going to be what it turned out to be?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean it was. I mean we knew the writing was good, and we knew it was good. But it's sort of you're sort of calling out into the dark when no one's watching it, and there were a few people watching it, mainly law enforcement and lawyers and street gangsters were watching it in America, but certainly no one in England really got into it until the sort of third or fourth year we were shooting it, and the writer had to fight for every new season. They wanted to cancel every season. No, it was quite a struggle, I think, and I remember thinking, God, what's the point of me being over in Baltimore 6 months a year, and my daughter was in London, and when no one's watching this. And so it was great when suddenly it sort of, you realise, God, people really got it and really liked it.
And I mean, the accolades are extraordinary, aren't they? It's been called the greatest TV series there's ever been. I mean, you're part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's certainly the most interesting and exciting thing I've been involved in, and the most successful thing I've been involved in. And although when you say accolades, we never got any awards. Never got an award, but it got lots of nice things said about it. And but it was important. It was. It's not often you can say. It sounds a bit pretentious to say it's an important bit of telly, but it was important because I think it showed points of view that hadn't really been seen before.
No awards, but are you getting a bit of a cut each time the DVD box set?
No, neither's the writer. I remember being on a train with him to New York, David Simon, the writer, and the guy came down the train selling bootleg DVDs. And he tried to sell us one, and he looked at us and he went, "Oh my God, oh God, it's you!" And David Simon went, "Yeah, good on you." He said, "I don't get any money from the DVDs, so I certainly don't, but even the writer doesn't." So,
which is presumably why we're all still working, isn't it? Yeah. back to Othello. I mean, are there things, actors, that you learn about yourself when you playing something like this that's been out there for 400 years by the greatest writer in the English language? Is there something you learn about yourself when you're actually...
Yeah. I mean, you play Shakespeare and you inevitably, even if it's a horrible part like Iago, it extends you and stretches you and challenges you more than any other work you can do, I think, in acting. And in that way you learn that you can work a lot harder than you thought you could, and that you can be a lot fitter and a lot cleverer than you thought you could. And in terms of this play, which is essentially about jealousy, and Iago is an incredibly jealous person, and it's so well written and so well observed that you inevitably draw on your own my own reservoirs of jealousy, and you're always drawing on past experience, and in some ways that's quite unpleasant with a character like Iago, but in others you do learn a lot about the destructive force of jealousy in men, which I sort of knew because I have been jealous in the past, but now I think I'd be more easily able to spot it, I think.
Last couple, I mean, what have you been doing in your time off back in Sheffield? I was talking to Rebecca, I think, today, saying that you'd actually been at your old school, was that right?
Yes, I did, yeah. Well, I went to the high school, I had a chat with the A-level girls there, and then I went to Westbourne, where I used to go to school, and that's totally transformed as well. And there was just one mad science teacher who was still there from when I was there, and he's not mad, he's great actually, and so I got to go around with him, but everyone else sort of didn't know what the hell we were talking about. But it was great going back and seeing the school, and I'm living in my sister's cottage because she's left it for a minute, and so I'm back in Grindleford, and so I spend most of the time walking around the moors, which is what I like to do. Well, I think what I've really realised coming back, I always came back a lot, but now I suppose we lost the house that I grew up in, and I really have been realising recently just how amazing Sheffield is, and the surroundings, and the countryside, and how lucky I was to grow up here, and how great the people are. And it's something that you're not always aware when you live here, but you're really aware when you come back. It's a unique and wonderful place to grow up and to live.
Dominic, thank you ever so much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for finding the time. That's really nice, thank you.
Thanks.